Hello and welcome to my middle grade March possibilities list. So I am planning on joining the middle grade March theme that was developed by Amanda at the Curly Reader, Krista at Books and Jams, and Katie at Life Between Words. And it's something that they created years ago. They have merch, they've got an Instagram handle, I think they're gonna have prompts. It is a whole vibe. And I'm so excited to join this middle grade March wave. So first I wanted to mention the group read for this middle grade March theme is Pony by R.J. Palacio. I have read her Wonder. It is about a boy who, I think his father mysteriously vanishes in some way. He has a ghost for a companion and then at some point a pony. I will put all the information below for all of the group engagement for this read, and so hopefully you can join in as well. So for middle grade March, there are 5 prompts. A book that is set in the contemporary time, a book that is set in Asia or has an Asian character, a book that was published before you were born, a book that has 5 words or more in the title, and a book that has an orphan as a main character. And so I'm gonna go ahead and share what I have lined up for those categories. I have at least 3 in each category from which I am planning to choose 1, possibly more, but at least 1. So for the first category of a contemporary setting, I have 2 that I already own that I have not yet read, and that is Hoot by Carl Hiaasen. This is a Newbery Honor book. So this is set in southern Florida, I believe. It is about greedy developers, corrupt politicians, clueless cops, and middle school screwballs. Offbeat, quirky, gross, wacky. So we'll see. And then next I have The Tiger Rising by Kate DiCamillo. This is also set in Florida. And this is the story of, I think, a sibling set who find a tiger in a cage. It's very short, so it shouldn't be that challenging to read. Just because her books sometimes are short does not mean they don't pack a powerful punch, however. So we'll see. And then for my last modern prompt, I chose Starfish. I saw this at the library by Lisa Phipps, and Amanda from the Curly Reader has recommended this, and so I wanted to go ahead and pick it up as an option. It is the story about Ellie, who is a girl who is overweight, and it is all of her struggles with bullying and unkindness and finding her own self-confidence. In fact, by unapologetically being her own fabulous self. Then next, for Asian setting or Asian characters, I have 2 again from my shelves. The first one is The Parade of Shadows by Gloria Whelan. This might be a bit of a stretch, but this is the story of Julia, who goes with her father on an expedition in the Far East. And so she ends up in Turkey. I think there's something about the Ottoman Empire in here. And so, yeah, so we'll see. It's definitely Middle Eastern themed, which is technically an Asian setting. And so I've got that. And then next I have Stand on the Sky by Erin Bow. This one is actually my daughter's book. It was the winner of the 2019 Governor General's Literary Award. And this is the story of Aisulu, who trains eagles. And this is among the Kazakh nomads. Her brother has an illness, and so her family, I think, is struggling with, are they able to continue their nomadic life and her training of eagles, or are they going to need to change their lifestyle on behalf of her brother? So that is Stand on the Sky. And then last, I grabbed this one at the library on the new shelf. It was published in 2021. It is called Kiki Kalira Breaks a Kingdom, and this is by Sangu Mandana. So Kiki is somebody who struggles with anxiety, and so she has a sketchbook, and that's how she kind of manages her anxiety. Well, at some point she ends up falling into a world that she's developed in her sketchbook, and she realizes that the characters that she's been drawing in her sketchbook are all real, and she now has to save that world as well as her own world. So those are the 3 that I have for Asian characters or set in the Asian continent. So next I have books that were published before you were born. And so the first one that is on my shelf is Pat of Silver Bush by L.M. Montgomery. I've read quite a few of L.M. Montgomery books, but this is one that I've had on my shelf and I have not read it. So it is the story about a girl named Pat. This is the first of, I think, at least 2 books, possibly a trilogy. And my understanding is Pat is a homebody. Cheers, Pat. I got the homebody mug to join you in solidarity. But she apparently loves to be at home, and so I don't know much more than that. So I do want to read this though, because it's the only L.M. Montgomery on my shelf that I haven't yet read. And then I am also going to be reading A Wrinkle in Time with my family as a read aloud, and that is part of the Time Quartet by Madeleine L'Engle. A Wrinkle in Time is the story of Meg, Charlie, and Calvin, and Meg and Charlie's father is a physicist who ends up going missing as he's looking for the 5th dimension, and Charlie, Meg, and Calvin, their neighbor, with the help of Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which, go after the 5th dimension, try to find the Tesseract, and discover this evil being who is trying to destroy planets. And the hope is that in that process they also are able to save Meg and Charlie's father. And then last, I am reading Miracles on Maple Hill, which won the 1957 Newbery Award. And I am actually going to be reading Miracles on Maple Hill on my SCRIBD account. It is by Virginia Sorensen, and I'll be doing the audio version of that. And the premise here is that after Marley's father returns from war, they decide to move to the country in Pennsylvania, and this is just their experiences with all of those changes. Next, my 3 choices for the 5 words or more in the title books are 2 that I have on my shelf. The first one is I Can Make This Promise by Christine Day. This is the story of a Native American girl named Edie. She's half Native American, and she has been adopted by a Caucasian couple, doesn't know that much about her heritage, and then one day she finds a box in the attic that has letters and mementos from somebody who is signing their letters, Love, Edith. And this is her kind of coming of age journey into trying to figure out who this Edith is, who shares her name, and is it related to her past. And then next, I have A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus. So A Place to Hang the Moon is all over the place. Sarah from Read Aloud Revival highly recommends this book. It is the story of 3 children, William, Edmund, and Anna, who are in World War II London, and they are doing that mass wartime evacuation that so many other characters really have done. And this is them kind of moving from one billet, one location to another, and the brutalities that they face. They do come across a kind librarian in the village lending library. This is the story of what it says is the dire importance of family, the one you're given and the one you choose. I always hesitate these days with kids in wartime London with the evacuation, just because I've read so many books and there are some that are really great and some that are mediocre, but this gets such rave reviews that I am going to give it a try, and I'm excited to do so. And then the one that I chose from the library for this category is Each Little Bird That Sings. Again, I think quite a few people may be reading this. This is by Deborah Wiles. This is the story of Comfort, and she lives in a funeral home. And again, I think it's just coming of age, family involvement and interaction. And I heard about this from Kate Powell, who hosts Victober, which is reading Victorian novels in October, and so I'll be sure to link her channel below. But I'm excited. This is a National Book Award finalist. So the next category is main character is an orphan. I have the most books in this category. 2 are from my shelf. The first one is Fire Arrow by Edith Pateau. She wrote The North Child, which I loved, one of my favorite books ever. It's kind of roughly a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This story is about Bree, who is an orphan. She's got an arrow, and it says each time she uses it, the arrow and her grow more alike. She ends up really wanting revenge on her father's death, and the arrow leads her to a strange country and discovers a sorcerer, a one-eyed sorcerer. I love fantasy and am excited to dive into this. The next one that I found on my shelf that would work for orphans, I'm also really excited about, and that's Sky Chasers by Emma Carroll. This is the story about an orphan named Magpie, and this is actually based on the true story of the first hot air balloon flight over Paris in the 18th century. And so Magpie is an orphan who wants to be the first to fly in the hot air balloon. There's like a sheep and a rooster, and it's just really cute. Okay, the next one that I am considering reading is called A Wolf Called Wander, and this is by Roseanne Parry. This orphan is a wolf, and it is based on the extraordinary true story of a wolf named OR7, and this wolf actually journeyed about 1,000 miles in the Pacific Northwest, and the idea here is that after a rival pack attacks, the family gets scattered and this wolf is on its own. So I am counting that as wolf as a orphan. The next one is also from the library, and that is The Beatrice Prophecy, another one by Kate DiCamillo. I think this one is also a pretty popular choice, and I have not read it, and really we have goats in our house, and so anything that has a goat in it is a draw for me. But this story here is that Bee suddenly shows up in, I think, a monastery setting, and she is in with the goats, and the child doesn't know where she came from or who her people are. And then someone else, I think it was Kate Howe, again, I'm mentioning her a lot, but she mentioned just the beautiful end pages in this, and they really are lovely. And it also has some illustrations in it as well by Sophie Blackall. Okay, speaking of illustrations, the last one that I chose for Orphan is Lightfall, The Girl and the Galderan by Tim Probert. And this one I heard about from Chantel at Chantel Reads All Day, and I'll be sure to link her channel below. It is a graphic novel, and the idea here is that, what is the girl's name? Bee. It's also Bee. She is being raised by a pig wizard, and she comes across a Galdurian, and they thought that the Galdurians were extinct, but apparently they are not. And her adopted pig wizard grandfather is missing when she returns home after finding this creature, and they need to go out and find him. I don't read a lot of graphic novels, but this one seemed really interesting. So there you go. My crate is totally full with options for middle grade March. However, I have more that don't fit into any of the prompts that I have been wanting to read, and so I'm going to share what those are. From my shelf, I only have one from my shelf. I have Sophia's War. This is by Avi. I've read a lot of his books, but this is one that I have not. This is the story about the Revolutionary War. This has like treachery. I don't know if it's spies. I don't know if Nathan Hale is part of it or James Lafayette or what, but we are in this time period in our homeschool history, and so I want to read this. And then next I have Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This I found out about on Emmy's channel. I will link her channel below. And this is also a anime movie. I think a pretty popular one. So I thought I would read this and then maybe watch the anime movie. The idea here is that Sophie is the oldest of 3 daughters. She, for some reason, attracts the anger of a witch, and the witch turns her into a hag. So in order to break the enchantment, she needs to find this Howl's Moving Castle. Next, I have The Fire Within by Chris DeLacy. This is a series of, I think, 7 books. My daughter read this one. We now have the other 6 books from the library currently because she loved it so much. The idea here is that David, our main character, moves in with a girl and her mother, and he discovers these clay dragons that come to life, and it seems like they act like muses with writing, and so there's a mystery and he has to save his dragon. So because she loved it so much, I wanted to give that a try. Next is Anya and the Dragon. This is one my son grabbed from the library, and this is the story about Anya, who doesn't necessarily believe in magic, but over time she discovers these Russian folk heroes. It talks about the domovoi, which are like hearth creatures who help you in your house and things, and I know they are very Russian folklore because they are in The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, which is also really great, but I wanted to read this. And then I grabbed Echo Mountain by Lauren Wolk. I have not read Wolf Hollow, but I've heard through the homeschool grapevine that this is a really great book. It's about living in the mountains during the Great Depression time, and she goes, the main character, who is Ellie, goes and finds a mountain medicine woman to try to heal her father. Next, I have Before the Ever After by Jacqueline Woodson. This is the story about ZJ, whose father is a retired pro football player, and they are noticing that the father is starting to have physiological ramifications from his football career. And I love Jacqueline Woodson. I read Brown Girl Dreaming, which is not middle grade, by the way, but I believe this one is. And she writes in verse before Tupac and Biggie. I am excited to read another one of Jacqueline Woodson's. And last, the one I'm most excited about. Is that true? Yeah, I think this is the one I'm most excited about. This one is called The Emerald Atlas by John Stevens. It is book 1, The Book of Beginnings. And this is the story about 3 siblings, Kate, who's the oldest, Michael, and Emma. And they, again, this is the first of at least 3 that I know of. And through this enchanted atlas, the children end up getting transported to another world. They end up having to save the world. It's ruled by a countess and then her army of soulless screechers. So I've got 25 books lined up as possibilities for middle grade March. Feel free to let me know below what you are planning to read that you're most excited about, or if you're watching this a little bit later, what you've read that was your favorite in middle grade March. And until next time.